In another dimension, vampire and boss of the demon world's eastern district, Stas Charlie Blood lives as a normal otaku. Stas's second-in-command, Deku, informs him of their capture of a living human girl, Fayumi Yanagi, and brings her over to Stas's apartment. Upon meeting Fayumi, Stas becomes infatuated and engages her in an otaku discussion. Meanwhile, Deku and the other gang members get into a fight with a challenger to Stas's leadership who wields demon plants. Deku calls Stas for help, who aids them after suppressing his vampiric urges from Fayumi. Stas easily kills the challenger, and when he and Deku return to the apartment, they horrifically discover that Fayumi had been killed by one of the rogue demon plants. After finding her bones and, strangely enough, Fayumi herself on Stas's bed, Deku deduces that she became a ghost and Stars resolves to resurrect her. Fayumi later remembers how she stumbled into the demon world and takes Stas to a back alley where they discover a rare dimensional portal known as the Black Curtain. Stas stops Fayumi from entering the portal, explaining its strange nature, before expressing a desire to visit the human world himself. Stas then takes Fayumi to a local cafe where he has the owners, Sadie and Mamejiro, determine the nature of her existence via their third eye magic. As Stas reveals his intention of going to the human world to a panicked Mamejiro, Deku enters with a new gang recruit, Mimic Yoshida. Mamejiro outlines the repercussions of Stas's departure, but he compensates by making Mimic the new boss, who subsequently transforms into Stas's own likeness, and they decide to use him as a body double in Stas's absence. Afterwards, at a welcoming party for Mimic, Fayumi wonders if Stas can really resurrect her, but Deku reassures that Stas sees his goals through. The Black Curtain exits inside Fayumi's room and Stas immediately begins criticizing her plain lifestyle. Afterwards, Stas suggests that he enroll as a transfer student at Fayumi's high school, and they run into her upset father, but Stas sprays him with his diluted saliva, altering his behavior and explaining that it possesses the property of controlling humans. Later, Stas enters into a fit of excitement while marveling at the human world, and upon arriving at Fayumi's school, sprays its entire population with his saliva, thus allowing her to fit in as if she never left. Fayumi soon learns that the chemical only creates false memories, at which point, her body starts disappearing, much to her shock. Stas has her suck some of his blood, which restores her demon existence. Afterwards, Stas finds himself strangely uninterested in sucking the blood of humans other than Fayumi. Later, they return to Fayumi's house to discover a woman calling herself Belle Hydra. Belle reveals that she didn't leave the Black Curtain out by choice and that she had known about Stas's doppelganger, to which Stas wrongly deduces that she intends to blackmail him into giving up his territory, before she uses spatial magic to transport him to point in the human world and threatens to kill Fayumi if he doesn't get an item from a demon clothing store for her. Afterwards, Belle explains that she had been looking for the person who stole the Black Curtain from her. Meanwhile, Stas enters into a pointless fight with the store owner, until Belle and Fayumi show up, with the latter explaining that Belle had only been testing Stas in her search for someone with powerful magic. Finally, Belle reveals that the only thing capable of bringing Fayumi back to life is the Book of Human Resurrection, which she had sold to the boss of the demon world's western district, Wolf. Wolf continues to expand his territory within the demon world while Stas enlists Mamejiro along with Fayumi to help track him down. Meanwhile, Belle, still suspicious of Stas, continues to observe him. They board a special demon carriage and end up meeting Wolf en route to another territorial battle. After a bit of casual rivalry, Stas tries to get Wolf to help him in obtaining the book, which the latter deems too frivolous an exploit of his time. Seeing no other alternative, Stas proposes that they have a competition, with Wolf wagering to help Stas find the book should Stas win, and Stas wagering Fayumi herself should Wolf win. Afterwards, Stas starts preparing for a bowling competition, elaborating to Fayumi a plan to cheat using his manipulative magic, although Wolf has a boxing match prepared instead. As they both step into the ring, Stas begins the fight with a clinch tactic, but Wolf ends up dominating the rest of the match, believing that Stas would use up all of his magic healing his wounds. However, in a dramatic turn of events, Wolf ends up being the one whose magic depletes, since Stas had bitten him during their clinch and had been absorbing his magic ever since. As Stas starts gaining the upper hand, Wolf enters a partial werewolf transformation and begins patronizing Stas's motives of helping Fayumi, claiming that Stas only uses his vampiric powers when it benefits him. This angers Stas to the point of almost killing Wolf with his zip spell, although the match is stopped by a tearful Fayumi along with Belle, who transports them all to another building. Here Belle reveals that she had the book all along and was merely toying with the group. Finally obtaining the book, they try to read it and fail to read its anagrammatic text, with the only person capable of deciphering it being the book's author, which shocks Stas when he turns back to the first page. Stas grows terrified when he learns that the book's author is none other than his older brother and resident of the demon world Acropolis, Braz D. Blood. Staz's reluctance to visit Braz in Acropolis enraged Wolf, who forces him to finish that which he had started while also threatening Belle to use her spatial magic to take Staz to Acropolis. Wolf then kicks Staz into a newly opened portal where he ends up in Belle's bedroom. Here Belle once again tries testing Staz, but he instead questions her true motive. Belle reveals that Staz's magic acts as though it leaks out of a seal, prompting him to explain his history with Braz. Staz explains that when he was younger, Braz conducted numerous torturous experiments on him for the purpose of sealing away his magic, which Braz had managed by shooting a bullet directly into his heart, thus creating a seal that only he can remove. Upon learning this, Belle finally confirms that Staz isn't the magic thief, since he simply wasn't powerful enough to steal her black curtain, but this only makes her more curious about Staz's true power. Belle then tries to provoke Staz by locking him in her spatial grid room until he promises to have Braz remove the seal. Staz agrees and states that when his seal is removed he will use his full magic power and actually steal her spatial magic. Afterwards, Belle treats Staz to sushi and begins falling for him against her better judgment. Meanwhile, back in the demon world, Fayumi's body starts vanishing once more, prompting Wolf to hurriedly take her to the mad scientist, Frankenstein. Finally, Belle takes Staz to Acropolis and decides to cause some trouble to force him into breaking the magical seal. Staz decides to sneak into Braz's castle but ends up being caught by his little sister and warden of the demon world, Liz T. Blood, who had disowned him because of his betrayal and imprisons him in the prison known as Liz's toy box. Staz's fellow inmates then trick him into pushing a suspicious button in his cell, which opens to a corridor. After being led to another room, Staz once again encounters Liz, who explains that a prisoner can leave at any time they wish, providing they can defeat her zombie subordinates in battle, a feat which not a single inmate has yet to accomplish. Liz's zombies easily defeat Staz, although he repeatedly challenges them with the same result. Meanwhile, Franken deduces that Fayumi's condition can be stabilized with a dose of Staz's blood. He further explains to Wolf that ghosts have the unique ability of becoming a single demon species by absorbing their magic, digressing that if Fayumi absorbs all of Staz's magic, she may be able to rival another demon. Back in Acropolis, Braz learns of Staz's arrival and the Blood family reunites, with the former refusing to help Staz. After a little sibling rivalry involving Liz's envy of Braz's preference to Staz, Braz proposes Staz with a deal. Meanwhile, Belle reveals to an angered Wolf of Franken's hidden intention of using Fayumi to combat a failed experiment called Artificial Demon No. 9. Akim Papradan, a monstrosity he created using bodily pieces of other demons. Seeking stronger parts, however, Akim escaped from Franken's laboratory and began hunting demons. Wolf makes a deal with Franken that should he defeat Akim, he would return Fayumi to being a regular ghost. Simultaneously, Braz explains the same matter to Staz, proposing to teach him the resurrection spell should he help defeat Akim, which the latter refuses. Braz continues that after unlocking Staz's tremendous magic power via his experiments, he was forced to seal it until a time when Staz could properly wield it. Refusing to have the seal removed, Braz has Liz's zombies beat Staz to the point of having to use his true power. Meanwhile, with Belle's help, Wolf arrives at the North District in his search for Akim and engages in a battle with the territory's boss. However, much to Wolf's horror, Akim suddenly appears by grotesquely ripping through the boss. Finally, as the zombies overwhelm Staz, Braz removes the bullet seal, awakening Staz's true power and thus allowing him to easily eradicate the zombies. With his power now unlocked, Staz reluctantly leaves Acropolis to face Akim as per Braz's deal with him. Meanwhile, Wolf and Akim begin their battle, with the latter specializing in spatial magic. Much to Wolf's shock, Akim reveals that he is merely Demon Phantom manipulating the dead pieces of a physical body via magic. Wolf then releases the magic stored in his pipe and enters into a full werewolf transformation. Meanwhile, Belle traps Franken in the grid room, forcing him to reveal everything about Akim's spatial magic. Meanwhile, Wolf and Akim engage in fierce hand-to-hand combat, with the former supposedly emerging victorious after using his claws to slice Akim to pieces. At the same time, Staz shows up just as Akim starts putting his body back together and enters the battle by knocking Akim into the northern wasteland before switching with Wolf, whose magic completely depletes. Staz unleashes a barrage of magical punches against Akim, none of which connect due to the latter realizing Staz's reckless fighting style. Insulted, Staz releases his magic, which takes the form of a large golden hand and annihilates Akim in one powerful attack. In the attack's wake, Staz allows Akim to piece himself back together, admitting that his power is a burden before seemingly killing Akim with his zip spell. Afterwards, Wolf approaches Staz and challenges him to a battle. Meanwhile, Belle delivers the pieces of Akim to Franken after having captured him whilst attempting to escape Staz's zip, and questions them on Akim's spatial magic, learning that Franken had obtained Akim's core body with the spatial magic stolen from her by an unknown third party. Braz and Liz then show up and imprison Franken and Akim in the toy box before approaching Stas, who refuses to fight his friend Wolf with his full power. Finally, Braz asks to meet the girl whom Stas wishes to resurrect. Bell delivers Braz and Stas, Liz, back to Franken's examination room where Fayumi and Mamejiro wait. As Braz meets Fayumi for the first time, his initial interaction with her angers Stas, prompting him to reject Braz's help and uses his temporary method of restoring Fayumi with his own blood. Afterwards, the group heads back to the Third Eye Cafe after Braz makes a request to see Fayumi's original body. Bell also reveals her suspicion of Braz to Stas and gives him a magical bell which would summon her when Fayumi requires assistance. Eventually, Braz takes a sample of magic from Fayumi and explains that he should be able to resurrect her by converting her magic into a soul and replacing it inside a replicated body. Having obtained all he needs, Braz leaves for Acropolis while leaving Liz behind and, unbeknownst to Stas, plans on extracting Stas's magic from Fayumi's sample for his own experiments. Afterwards, Stas shows Liz around the Eastern District and buys her a stuffed animal before returning to the cafe for a bite to eat made by Fayumi. Sometime later, Stas deduces that Braz had forbidden Liz from returning to Acropolis until his experiments are complete and allows her to stay at his place whilst introducing her to his otaku collection. Meanwhile, a strange blonde man observed the group. Afterwards, Fayumi and Liz start bonding by taking a bath and even sleeping together. The next day, Liz wakes up to a note explaining that Fayumi seems to have left and asks that they not follow her, but Stas and his friends deduce that she had probably been kidnapped and set out to search for clues. Liz reveals that Braz had planted a tracker on Fayumi and Stas pleads with her to return to Acropolis and get Braz's help. Meanwhile, Mamejiro, Sadie, Yashida and Deku obtain a lead on the blonde suspect who was last seen heading towards the southern part of the demon world. Liz arrives in Acropolis and is immediately confronted by Acropolis policewoman, Constable Burroughs. Burroughs allows her to entry into the district on the condition that she take her to Braz so that he can be arrested for illegally leaving Acropolis. Afterwards, Liz informs Stas that she had failed to locate Fayumi using Braz's equipment while he is simultaneously approached by a member of the Southern District's tropical territory who takes him to the territory's snowman boss. Here Stas learns that the blonde-haired man called Nell Hydra lives in the inaccessible dimensional highway. Meanwhile, as Nell stops off at a ramen restaurant, Fayumi gains the opportunity to signal Bell using the bell she had given her. Meanwhile, Liz acquires Fayumi's position and relays this to Stas. As Nell flees in response to Fayumi's signal, he is intercepted by Bell where she learns that he was simply running an errand for their mother. Just then Stas appears and angrily demands that they return Fayumi, prompting Bell to aid her brother and imprison Stas in her grid room, hence allowing Nell to escape using spatial magic. Here, Stas tries and fails to reason with Bell, angering her to the point of goading him into a battle when he prioritizes Fayumi above herself. Bell then materializes her spatial magic and seems to gain the upper hand on Stas until he traps her in his own magic, causing her to escape by abandoning her lower body clothes, including her carrying bag. However, when Stas begins to investigate the bag and happens upon her diary, Bell immediately surrenders to prevent him from seeing its contents. Afterwards, as Bell takes Stas to Fayumi, she laments that he still hasn't noticed her feelings for him. However, Stas surprises her by realizing that however good his intentions initially seem, they always invite unforeseen consequences, and allows Bell to vent her frustration on him. Upon arriving at the Acropolis Palace, Braz has a flashback whereby he witnessed the death of his father, the previous king, at the hand of present Acropolis king, Wolf Daddy. Meanwhile, Nell and Fayumi meet Bell and Stas at the Hydra Palace and realize that they know nothing about the Hydra siblings' mother, Nane's intentions. Afterwards, Nane has a rather heartfelt reunion with Fayumi, much to the latter's confusion, while the Hydra butler explains that Braz and Nane are acquaintances. Elsewhere, Wolf Daddy commends Braz on his observational duties of Lower Demon World and in aiding the capture of Akim Papradan, but finds it suspicious that Akim shares the same appearance of his missing subordinate, Pantomime. Braz nonchalantly admits that he orchestrated the creation of Akim as a declaration of war against Wolf Daddy's reign. Unbeknownst to Wolf Daddy, Braz has Franken working on a more powerful body for Akim. Wolf Daddy gives Braz 3 days by which to present his king candidate, after which he will kill them both. Afterwards, Braz manages to escape from Burroughs' custody but ends up being pursued by Goyle. Meanwhile, Nane explains the existence of doppelgangers within the human and demon worlds to Stas and others, and that she encountered and fused with her own doppelganger, Fayumi's mother, while on a trip to the human world with a young Bell, hence making the girls sisters. Elsewhere, Goyle manages to corner Braz with his angry spear magic and demands to know his intentions towards Wolf Daddy. However, after deducing the nature of Goyle's magic, Braz activates his Bloodstalker magic and is able to remotely control his own blood to threaten Burroughs' life, prompting Goyle to back down. Finally, as Fayumi tries to come to terms with everything that has happened to her thus far, Belle assures that once she is resurrected her memory will be erased. Heads Hydra, master of the Hydra territory, confronts Stas. Meanwhile, Deku, Yoshida and Mamejiro face the tropical territory who intend to conquer Stas's territory in his absence. Heads explains that after Nain was formed, she along with himself and Fayumi's father, Yanagi, met to discuss their circumstances. Eventually, Yanagi gave up Nain to Heads in exchange that he raise Fayumi as a normal human on his own. As Heads demands Stas's motive for resurrecting Fayumi, the latter sincerely claims that he won't know his true feelings for her until she is resurrected. This prompts Heads to sever Nain's eavesdrop on their interaction and trick Stas into making a false pledge that would kill him should he go against Fayumi's choices. Afterwards, Stas wakes up near the Hydra territory's entrance along with Fayumi as Heads tries to convince Nain of his intention to allow Fayumi to make her own choices. Meanwhile, as Goyle traps Braz in his cool decision spell, he is rescued by Liz's arrival and they both escape using her teleportation magic. Unable to agree with Head's gamble on Stas, Nain starts debating with his motives in that they should protect her, but he rebuffs that Yanagi is her true father. Meanwhile, back in the Eastern District, Deku, Yoshida and Mamejiro valiantly repel their would-be conquerors, while Wolf receives a letter from Acropolis. Elsewhere, Stas laments the fact that his promise to resurrect Fayumi had done more harm to her than good, but again promises to resurrect her in addition to leaving the Hydra territory should they both be her desire, which she accepts. As Nain and Heads watch Fayumi and Stas's decision, Heads ponders that Stas will have to become a true hero to face the trials that lie ahead. Here's more video you might like, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our future videos. Leave a like, it really helps the channel, and let me know what you think in the comments.